What's up, everybody? Conor here from the Horny Goat YouTube channel, the Horny Goat Podcast Network, and we're back. We're a little late, but better than ever. In this week's edition of the Marvel Roundtable, we are back at it as we wrap up MCU Phase 2 with a very peculiar entry starring Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, and some other notable characters as we take on, well, Marvel's or MCU's adaptation of one of the most uniquely intriguing characters, none other than Ant-Man. Does he hold up or does he come just a little too short? That sounded dirty. I think we'll talk about it on this week's edition right here on the Marvel Roundtable. What is up, all you cool cats and kittens out there? I should probably change it to Excelsior for Stan Lee. That probably would make more sense. But anyway, I just botched the intro. Welcome, everyone, to the Marvel Roundtable right here on the Horny Goat YouTube channel. Of course, the Horny Goat Podcast Network, where you can listen to us and all your favorite podcasting platforms. And, of course, is the Marvel Roundtable, where we break down each and every single show / movie in the MCU. You guys know me. I am your MC for this show. I am Conor, part of the Horny Goat Network. But, of course, I'm not alone. I've got with me, as part of the Roundtable, I've got with me the tattooed mama herself, Heather. What's up, Heather?
Not much. I'm sick as a dog, and we're trying to still move.
Oh God. Well, I mean, you're on the tail end, which is great. I mean, I this week has sucked for me as far as like nothing's working. I was sick. I missed No Bucks Given last weekend. It was a disaster. So I'm spreading it to you. Is what I'm saying. It's my fault. It's all my fucking fault. It's always my fault.
It is. No, actually, it's Gina's fault because she admitted she was actually feeling pretty good for the first time in a while, so it's her fault.
It throws the balances off. Yeah, of course. And I've got with us everyone's favorite bear from upstairs, Canadian Basement.
Yeah, I'm not sick. At least I don't think I am. But I'm like at that point with allergies where I might as well be. And it's been going on for like a month. So like I'm okay right now. But I can guarantee when I'm lying down, about to go to bed, my fucking face will ejaculate everywhere.
There's like liquid coming out of every pore of every orifice of my face and body and head, and just nope.
And your head gets all pressurized. It's like, well, I guess sleep is not happening. I'm just gonna sit here in my own mess.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about in that one. We want to thank everybody in the chat and thank you for your patience. We did try to do this. Of course, we took a break off last week because, there was moving. I was on vacation, and we just figured it'd be nice to take a little bit of a break after the epicness that was Avengers Age of Ultron. And we tried to stream last night, but unfortunately my computer system was just like also wanting to take a vacation. Apparently allergies can transfer to computers as well, or I'm just a fucking idiot sometimes. It's
virus.
it's a virus, so it could have been either or. But we want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight as we're wrapping up finally MCU's second phase. We've gone through, can you believe we've done 12 of these things?
Oh God, it's not
really. No, I enjoy talking these movies regardless because at this point I'm gonna start to become JP. I won't become JP to the point where everybody should have died, but I mean, there is some. My heart is growing cold and steely.
Yeah, I know it's been kind of. We were talking a little about this off air before we got in here in terms of like the I guess we could say the Marvel theme or their formula for success, but we'll probably talk a lot about that more in especially in future installments as we get to them. But this week we're wrapping up MCU's Phase 2 with a rather unique entry with a superhero that honestly, when the MCU started coming out with these things, no one really saw this one coming, and I mean that in every possible funny fucking joke and pun and all that stuff. But in all seriousness, like, hey, they're actually gonna go ahead and do this. And shout out to, of course, everybody in the chat real quick. We got Jurgen, Tim, the real Cody. Looks like Cody said he pulled a muscle in his leg during softball. Like, man, I hope you're
softball. Yeah, I played your softball.
Hope you're feeling all right, man.
Even though I didn't go to the church. You just
snuck in.
I showed up. What's up, guys?
Let's go, Pastor. Let's go, Pastor. Who is that kid?
I don't know. It was weird because like I'm not a big religious person. No offense to anybody that is, but I played in the church softball league, and afterwards we do like a prayer and shit. We'd always lose though, but still, it was. Then I played like outside. The softball is just fucking great, man. As you get older and your body's like shit, It's the one sport you can continue to play
Yep.
to an extent.
So you're saying is we should have a Horny Goat softball league?
Well, it's gonna be fucking
Why not?
transcontinental.
we'll just
Virtual softball.
we'll just do like either Wii Sports or like we'll do like fucking
Oh god,
the
Wii Sports gonna pull my
MLB
whole body.
MLB the Show or some shit like that. But anyway,
Well, we can always break out the 2019 Special Olympics game on the fucking
oh god,
PlayStation.
Oh, Olympics game?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I'm down to play Special Olympics.
we'll get there when we get there. Oh man, but thank you everybody for joining us in the chat real quick as I'm just pulling up my little bit of notes here. So we're talking about Ant-Man, which, you know, at this point we're well into obviously Disney MCU, and now we're past the point of no return, in which case, you know, we have a pretty interesting cast of actors and actresses, and this is once again Marvel kind of, you know, once again taking a little bit of a different turn, in the sense of we now have another movie that is introducing a new character, or new hero, I should say. So we're not, you know, it worked well with Guardians.
I was gonna say it's the second time too that they went with the least likely to be a superhero.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like we're kind of, you know, I was talking about this with friends. I was talking about you guys before we got on the air here about, like, you know, when they were assembling the Avengers, obviously at this point now the Avengers are pretty well established. We've got our Cap, Iron Man, Hulk, all the blah, blah, blah. And even like some of the side characters like Vision and Scarlet Witch, which we talked about obviously in the last episode with Frank. By the way, shout out again to Frank for joining us on the last week's episode. But yeah, you know, like we said, like with Guardians, it's like almost like a complete veer left. And this feels like another veer left, because it's like, oh wow, Ant-Man, oh, he can shrink, ooh, what. But I'm gonna be honest with you, and this is the part where I ask you guys like up front what you thought of the movie. I loved this movie. I'm not saying it's the best. I need to stress that I don't think it's the best Marvel movie, but I think that a big part of the reason I love this is because I think Paul Rudd fits into this so perfectly as far as the comedic feel to it. Maybe that's just me. You guys go ahead.
You first, basement.
Are you driving the bus? Has he thrown me under it? No. Okay, so this, I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm gonna be a bit more cruel to this movie than I should be.
Yeah.
It, like when I watched it originally, it was it was like a okay. I didn't have the same. A lot of people, like, looking back on this and then doing some research myself online, and apparently there was a lot of like people that were really against this movie for various reasons, and you might get into that before we start.
Yeah.
But I wasn't aware of that going into this movie, and I just was off the coattails of Ultron, and I was already on like a bleh from that, because I didn't like that movie originally at all.
Right.
And then this came out, and it didn't really lift me back up to anything, because so this movie is like, you're going from like each movie with the superhero movies prior to this have built up and up, bigger stakes, and then this takes it right back down to relatively small stakes.
There's so many puns with this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, relatively small stakes, which isn't a bad thing, but it kind of, I guess, took me off guard and made it mean less when I watched it. On the rewatch, I like this movie less and less, and
Really?
and yeah, and it's because every movie becomes this movie.
Right, we were talking a little about this beforehand. Yeah.
But like, I mean, on the rewatch, it does multiple things, and it does none of them great. It does all of them okay.
All right.
Because it's like, what? It's a superhero movie. It's a heist movie. It's a I don't know.
It's a trope
movie. But none of the things it does better than movies that have done them before. And
Okay,
it arguably
yeah.
does it worse than a lot of movies.
No.
It just does a lot of different things. And I guess this was the first time you kind of see a heist being introduced. But I mean, the heist movies, it's a you son of a bitch, and that trope is just like so true.
Which I love. I love that Rick and Morty episode. It's so good. You son of a bitch. I'm in. No,
It's
I mean,
not a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like, this is one of the movies on a rewatch that really hits me in where the superhero genre, especially the Marvel superhero genre,
Mhm.
has overstayed its welcome
Okay.
in this specific in the tropes that are specifically found in this movie.
Yeah,
Heather?
I'm kind of along the same lines as Basement. This movie, yes, was a step up from Ultron, but it's still 3 or 4 steps behind Guardians for me,
Well,
as
yeah,
far
yeah.
as levels of actual entertainment and stuff like that. I mean, Paul Rudd does an amazing job for this character considering he's never been a superhero before ever in his career.
He doesn't
He's
age.
always been that comedy guy that's been the straight man while also being funny.
Right.
I don't
So
think
I
he's
will
that
give
funny
Paul,
though.
yeah, I really give Paul Rudd a lot of credit for doing as well as he did with this kind of a role because he's never done it before.
Mhm.
So, but at the end of the day, this is still lower tier for me.
Like I said, I don't think this is the best Marvel's done, but I think that like I think there's aspects of it that I upon rewatch enjoyed. I'm not disagreeing with anything that you guys are saying. We'll get more into it
Dare you
obviously.
not agree or disagree?
No, I'm not disagreeing with anything you guys say, but at the same time, and this is the joke I'm going to make all fucking throughout this episode. So if you hate puns, I'm sorry. This is my anthill to die on because I really enjoyed this
Anthill.
movie. Yep. This is there's a lot of this that I enjoyed. But the reason I was saying that like I think Paul Rudd fits is because to me, this movie was the like if you didn't understand the Marvel comedic style or the comedy over undertones of Marvel movies, this was about as like to me anyway was about in your face as very like upfront with it as humanly possible. Guardians was a little different because I think Guardians had a different like feel to it, and I think that
Pretty kind of comedy too.
right. And I think, but I'm saying is like Paul Rudd, who like his this stereotypical role, he fit into that perfectly because it felt like, for lack of a better phrase, a Paul Rudd movie that just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's kind of why I think it fit a lot of ways. Do I think it dropped the ball on things? Yes, I do, but we'll get there.
This is also probably the movie I would first show to like a young kid that wanted to watch Marvel. It's the most accessible because think about like how the acts go and like even the final act that we'll get to.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of inclusion for a young one of the main characters is a young girl, but like they play like the fight scenes happen around that, right? And it's very fluffy in terms of not fluffy
Yeah.
in terms of not
Yeah.
really having the stakes there, and a lot of it there's an overabundance of humor and an overabundance of like Honey I Shrunk the Kids vibes. Like these are things that are very accessible to the younger generation. So for young kids, I think this would be the best. Me not being that, it was
Yeah.
kind of a
Okay,
bit of a
yeah.
slide at
You
times.
know, what's funny? We were saying now. Obviously, we're recording this towards the end of April, and it's actually something just on a funny note. You know, obviously, I'm the Marvel geek of the group, and so whenever like Marvel makes an announcement, I'm like, "Hey, did you guys see X, Y, and Z?" And I remember I asked all you guys, "Hey, did you guys see the Miss Marvel trailer?" And everyone and I said, listen, I get it, it's not for us, and it's not our we are not the target audience. Am I gonna watch it? I'm a slut for Marvel, so of course I'm gonna watch it, but I'm
Do me,
not
Mickey.
huh
Just do me, Mickey.
listen, all right, it's not like I was there in December. Fuck. But I understand that like going into that, the way they pitch it is like that. Yeah, this is not geared towards me. This is going to be a lot of right, and trust me, we will get there down the road. But like, I get what you're saying, Basement. And as far as
I mean, I won't hate it without that. Like, I mean, I'm gonna look at it objectively and say I know these movies. Some of them are definitely not made for me. Most of them aren't really made for me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can enjoy them, but some of them are. There's too much of a disconnect where it'll feel more like a chore watching. And I'm pretty sure Miss Marvel's gonna be that way for me. So I probably won't check it out. But who knows?
I'll let you know, and
Don't worry, we'll probably end up watching it at some point and reviewing it.
please, and Basement and Heather know me at this point that they can like filter out my like Marvel fanism and be like, hey, Let's take this into consideration, you know.
I
But
mean, we're reviewing these as I'm reviewing all these movies as Marvel movies, not necessarily as movies compared to other movies.
right,
You can't. It's a genre that's
It's
so
an
big on its
impossible
own.
task.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's so big on
unfair.
its own that
Yeah,
it's not really fair to like do that. But
hence the point of the show.
and don't get me wrong, I did not hate this movie. It's just
Wh-
we'll get into it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So,
So this one has a lot of backstory, so I'm going to try and barrel through this as quickly as possible. So there was actually development of an Ant-Man film that began as early as the 1980s when Ant-Man co-creator Stan Lee pitched the idea to New World Pictures, Marvel Comics' parent company at the time. However, Disney was developing a film based on a similar concept, you might have heard of it, called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And so nothing can, yeah, exactly. So that's why it didn't really come out, because at the time that movie came out and it blew the fuck up. And this is where it takes a really weird turn. In 2000, Howard Stern met with Marvel in an attempt to purchase the rights to the film rights to Ant-Man. In May of that year, Artisan Entertainment announced a deal with Marvel to co-produce, finance, and distribute a film based off Ant-Man. In 2003, Edgar Wright and his writing partner Joe Cornish wrote a treatment for Artisan and explaining that it revolved around Scott Lang as a burglar, so he could have gone slightly in the Elmore Leonard route through Artisan wanting the film to be like a family thing. However, Wright believed that the treatment was never sent to Marvel. A year later, the duo pitched the film to Marvel, then head of production Kevin Feige, and in April 2006, Marvel Studios hired Wright to write and direct and co-write Ant-Man, with Cornish as part of the company's first slate independently produced films. So it was kind of tossed around like a lot of these other Marvel products all over the place, until finally it landed in the into these guys' hands. So Wright also stressed that the film would not be a spoof, but an action adventure with some comedic elements, and would incorporate both the Hank Pym and Scott Lang incarnations of the character. Wright said that he was looking to do a prologue where you see Pym as Ant-Man in the action in the 60s, and then sort of flash forward as Scott Lang's story and how he becomes comes to acquire the suit, crosses paths with him, Hank Pym, etc., and so forth. So we were, they were still kind of like passing around the script idea. Nobody was locked in yet. And then finally, of course, we took it all over. So Stan Lee tweeted in February 2010 that Marvel was prepping the film, and he met with Wright for a lunch to discuss the character. Wright noted that there was no timetable for the film because Marvel did not consider the character to be one of the bigger tentpole properties. So it's more like me and Kevin Feige saying, let's make a good script that works. Then it's all about the great genre film, and that isn't necessarily relying on anything else. They revealed that Wright remarked because this film would be an origin story, it would not be released until after at least the first Avengers film, and the first Avengers film would not include Ant-Man, although they acknowledged that the character might appear in future Avengers films. So they kept on going for a while, teasing it, and then finally, May in 2012, they said that the project was as close as it's ever been, and teased the probably you might have seen it at San Diego 2012 Comic-Con of the a little bit of the teaser, like a little bit of like the test footage, kind of like the Deadpool stuff when the Deadpool so they had something similar where they showed Ant-Man like flying through like the glass and then beating up the guys and stuff like that. I remember seeing that. And funny enough, this was supposed to be the kickoff of Phase 3. This was supposed to be the original, which makes sense because we've talked about this before with Avengers Age of Ultron, where obviously Phase 1 ended with Avengers 1. It would obviously make sense for Phase 2 to end with Avengers 2, but because of the way that just things kind of lined up, and especially where people were like, oh, Hank Pym wasn't the creator of Ultron in this version of the comics, they decided to push it and kind of wrap things up, especially with the changeover, which we'll get into Phase 3, which we'll talk about more next week with all those movies. So, yeah, people wanted to make a fucking Ant-Man movie, apparently.
Yeah. I do believe this was the first Marvel movie to be pushed back because of a similar project that had nothing to actually do with superheroism.
Yep.
So
far.
You can't fault them on that one.
No.
Because that was literally out of their control. Another studio was doing something way too similar, and I agree, it would not have worked back then. Especially with everything that they were going to have to do. I mean, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was one of the first movies to actually do something like that and have it be successful and not look really cheap.
Well,
I
I
was,
mean, it aged decently, but I think for an action movie, it wouldn't look very good
I was about
with
to
how they
say, like,
interaction.
obviously you're talking a span of what, 32 years, right? 10, 20. Yeah, 32 years difference between when it was originally pitched to do the movie and when it came to fruition. So, or 35 years, fuck. So obviously technology in film, has changed drastically. So, I mean, could they have done it in the 80s and make it look decent?
It
Maybe,
would be maybe,
but
yeah.
it's going to be night and day compared to what that is one thing I will definitely also say about this movie is that visually, I think they did a hell of a job, but we'll get more details as things as we
I do
get
want
through.
to say they had Edgar Wright attached to this, and he did work on it for a while, right before was not working on it anymore.
Yes, I do remember hearing about that. Thank you for yeah. He said,
Like, you can see, especially in some of the scenes in this movie, because I've watched other things that Edgar Wright done. He's done like the Cornetto trilogy, like Shaun of the Dead,
yes,
at World's End, and then he also did Baby Driver. And there's moments in those films that you could see he's pulled like the inspiration in this movie, especially in the one where they're going around to different things. Like when there's a part where Jose Pena is describing like something happening, and everyone's talking through his voice, and it's going around.
I
And they
love
do
that.
that. That's later in the movie, but they also have another scene before that, like it's kind of similar
Yep.
in the way that the camera works and goes around. But that's like right up from him.
Oh yeah,
And those are
yeah,
some of the best things in this film, and I think that's why people were so hyped because a lot of people like him as a director.
right.
And when he
He
fell
knows the
off,
genre.
like,
He knows the genre and everything. Like he knows how to translate it into. You know what I mean? Like I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I think a lot of people, from everything I read, a lot of people were hyped that Edgar Wright was going to be developing this, and he was going to be developing this as like I think the falling out had to do with him. And correct me if I'm wrong. Him not wanting it to be part of the Marvel universe or having huge tie-ins that would take up some of the film.
Let me see. I can actually pull that up real fast before we take up too much. Um, let's see. I can pull. I had it here, but I think you're in the right here. Let me just see here.
I mean, this is just from one article I read. I can't even remember where I read it from, but I mean, I could see that being a reason. Most of the stuff he does as in sole control of, or as a one-off. He's not necessarily getting the studio to lean on him. And I know at this point, Marvel Studios would be like, if you want to direct our movies, you have to have a certain amount of tie-ins to the overall universe. That's the way we're developing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Always have to be together in one way or another.
Yeah.
Let me just see here. Yeah, Wright described Ant-Man as a standalone film, but said it would fit into the larger continuity of Marvel Cinema. You need to explain it. I'd like to make it standalone because I think the premise of it needs time. I want to put the crazy premise of it into a real world, which is why I think Iron Man really works because it's a relatively simple universe. It's relatable. I definitely wanted to go into finding a streamlined format where you use the origin format to introduce the main character, and further adventures can bring other people into it.
And I think that's the thing. They wanted to have a couple scenes that introduced characters existing in the Marvel universe in this movie, and it being the first. And you could see direct ties to Iron Man. There was a lot of similarities
Yeah.
between this movie and Iron Man.
It says here on the split, Wright said they just said creative differences of the vision of the film. On the split, Wright said, I wanted to make a Marvel movie, but I don't think they really wanted to make an Edgar Wright movie, which okay. I mean, it sounds like it was amicable. It said he also added that at one point Marvel wanted to do a draft of the script without him, which was a tough thing to move forward as Wright had written all the previous films he directed. Wright continued, suddenly becoming a director for hire on it, you're sort of less emotionally invested and you start to wonder why you're really there.
He's going through the fucking the beats, right?
Yeah,
That
so
somebody else did for him.
which I get that. And
Yeah.
yeah, and shout out to Frank joining us in the chat. What's up, Frank? And of course, Alpha also joining us. What's going on? Appreciate you guys coming in. So, I mean, you're right. I do see moments of Edgar Wright in there, and it does suck that. But I get it. I don't think he's necessarily. It's like a burned bridge, but like just creative differences. Which hey, that happens. You hear about this all the time. I mean, hell,
James Gunn.
Yep, James Gunn. We just heard about it. I mean, hell, the Doctor Strange movie that's coming out in a couple weeks. Sam Raimi was not originally selected to direct it, and then. It just happens. Things could change over because of creative differences.
if you're out there and you have like a history of creatively made movies that you had your hands in the whole time, and they're like, well, we kind of want you to be hands off, but we still want you to put your name on it. They're basically trying to benefit off the name while
Yeah,
somebody else is writing and telling you now go to point A, go to point B,
right.
and
Yeah,
maybe we'll take a couple things you say, but you really don't have any say.
right. So that
It's just
understandable.
like, then why am I here? Do it your damn self.
Right.
Exactly.
But all right. With that being said, guys and gals, and whatever basement is, let's get into the actual story itself, shall
I'm a
we?
they.
You're a they. Um,
I
So-
thought you were an it. Okay.
I thought you were. I thought you were a
Same
bear.
thing.
You're a bear. So the movie
A
kicks off.
necessity.
The movie kicks off in 1989, where Hank Pym resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D. after realizing that Howard Stark had been trying to replicate his shrinking technology. So we see this whole big scene where basically S.H.I.E.L.D. We literally see the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters that was destroyed about 4 movies ago, being built, and we see that he walks in and sees it was a poor replication of his formula. You see an older Howard Stark, you see an older Peggy Carter, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, the person who was there, and he makes a comment about Hank Pym's wife. He goes, "If only you protected your wife like that." He's like, and he just slams the head on there, and he goes, "Hey, you said." And I love how Howard's like, "You said it. I didn't. You
He's
mentioned
gonna
it." I
say
mean,
that to someone who just lost.
yeah, seriously, like you fucking
He
prick.
deserves so much more than that.
So of course the big thing is that he's like, listen, Hank, you have a miracle thing here. The Pym particle is the biggest scientific breakthrough in the last century. It could change the world. And he goes, as long as I'm alive, no one will have this formula. And walks off. And of course they said like, oh, we could, we could, bring him in. He's like, "Phew, if you want him on against you, and they're like, no, but he said Hank Pym will only be an enemy if you make him one. And not a bad setup. So we see that. So obviously we're kicking things off a little bit differently because, and I'll just kind of blanket this off at the beginning. We're obviously going a different direction than at least the quote unquote origin of Ant-Man. As we mentioned before, in the comics, Hank Pym, who is Michael Douglas in this movie, is Ant-Man in a majority of the episodes. Obviously, Scott Lang does become Ant-Man in future comics, but Hank Pym also is like one of the smartest people in the Marvel comics, up there with Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Reed Richards. He's one of I believe he's a member of the Illuminati. The guy fucking made his own dimension in the comics. I shit you not. The guy's brilliance is insane. And he also created Ultron, like we mentioned before. So, for me personally, I think them going the route of Hank being like almost like the Batman Beyond aspect, where it's like Bruce is training the new person in a sense.
That's what it felt like to me, yeah.
Not against that idea. And so it's a kind of a semi-deviation from the source material. So far, not a bad setup.
I feel like it fits in with the Captain America timeline too. For them to do this, like they have a past or a history, and they need to develop that history to make the present make more sense and have weight to it. So doing this with his character does make sense. I think probably a lot of people were upset that, especially a lot of comic book readers were upset that Pym wasn't the reason that Ultron existed, and then further maybe upset with the fact that the way they treat his character in this, me not being one of those people, I thought it was fine.
I
And I also like the casting. Michael Douglas is pretty
Yes,
good actor. Come on.
yeah, I like Michael Douglas.
And they turned him into a baby boy.
Oh yeah.
Good job with that too.
It was. I don't think it was.
I've
it
seen
was
worse.
that-
I have seen.
yeah.
I have
This is-
seen
no,
worse.
I would say this is almost on par with what we saw as Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
Not that
Yeah,
much
you know what?
different, Yeah.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I've seen better, but I've seen a lot worse. But I like the opening setup because, while there's obviously a lot of nods, there's a bunch of nods to the MCU in this movie. I like that it doesn't go too heavy into it, but you have this setup to like, okay, boom, new character, new introduction. He is important because holy shit, he was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, and going back to the whole Ultron thing, I do remember the I want to say outrage because it's not like people were super pissed, but like, yeah, the people like, oh, how come Hank Pym didn't invent Ultron? Now that we've kind of taken a step back and see the bigger picture of where Ultron really landed things as far as like the big MCU, I'm actually glad he didn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah, basically, then he would have been the outrage target for you just created a puppet.
I mean, if Ultron actually had an age, then it would have made more. I'd be okay. Like,
I'm
for
6.
the way that
Wow.
with that character, it made sense to go with it the way they did.
Yeah, exactly. So,
You'd have to rewrite and create a whole different story if it was through Hank Pym.
well, I mean, especially with like if so like we'll talk. I might as well brief up on this. I think we might have talked about this before, in the Age of Ultron episode. But if you were to do that, if you were to make it comic accurate as far as like Hank Pym being the creator, I think it throws a wrench into things. I think that despite how we thought of the movie or the way or the character or anything like or the age, it made sense to me that Tony made Ultron in the
It
MCU.
also makes sense for him to be responsible for that because he is literally the figurehead of that franchise.
Right.
You have to put a lot of importance on his character, especially in the Avengers movies where he's heading.
Yep.
You know, like you have to have that. You're not gonna just, and especially in an Avengers movie, not just gonna bring somebody out of nowhere. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's him that did this, and then it doesn't really have the weight that it would have the way that they did it. But
Right. But no, I preferred I didn't mind the way, looking back now in bigger scope, totally fine with this. In any case, we move on to the present day, 2015, where Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, had just served his last day in San Quentin State Prison, which I love how they do the goodbye ceremony by basically doing a circle jerk and having Fight Club. I've never been to prison, so I'm assuming this is a
I think
thing.
there's a lot of circle jerks.
I mean, who doesn't play a good game of Soggy Cookie? But he gets out, and waiting to pick him up is his old cellmate Luis, who, played by Michael Pena. I mean, I love this guy.
The movie for me, honestly.
He's the comedy center point, and this is why I say when you guys were like, yeah, Paul Rudd, he's funny. I'm like, is he though? Is really the comedy bone in this movie is Michael Pena, where Paul Rudd plays. I'm gonna say it. Paul Rudd plays Paul Rudd in every movie Paul Rudd's ever been. Paul Rudd did.
You're not wrong.
It's not a terrible thing, but he's
No.
definitely Paul Rudding.
But you're right. He's not the comedic relief.
I question if he can actually act.
He can. I think he can.
I feel like he's more of like I'd put him in line with a lot of actors out there like George Clooney and The Rock, where they are themselves in a movie.
Yeah.
Where
I'm not against that, but that's kind of what I was saying in regards to like
I wonder if they're an actor.
This movie. I mean, listen, I still love it. So Luis, who offers him to let him stay in his apartment, Scott is of course unable to find a legitimate job with his criminal record.
I worked at Baskin Robbins.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get there. So, a couple of things I love how he's like, "Hey, how's things going, Luis?" He's like, "Well, my girlfriend broke up with me.
It's great.
And then my dog died. And then my dad got deported, but I got the van." He's like, "Oh, great."
That was good. I like that. Like, there's moments in this movie where like the comedy really hits, and then there's moments where the comedy does not. But this is one of them where it does.
So Scott's trying to find a legitimate job with his but he can't with his criminal record. He had found out that the company he had worked for had been overcharging their customers, so he hacked into the system and transferred millions of dollars back to the customers. Luis, of course, invites him to meet his friends Dave, the getaway driver, and Kurt, identify identity theft specialist. Lewis has a tip about a robbery they could do together, but he's like, no. And then, of course, we see the Baskin Robbins scenario where he's like working at Baskin Robbins. I wasn't like laughing hysterically, but I got a chuckle out of like, man, can I just say I found out your past? Man, I'm so happy. You did such a great job. You're so fired, but still great. I mean, he's like, there's nothing you can do.
You're cool, man.
He's like, you're a cool dude. He's like, is there nothing you can do? And he goes, listen, I know it's against company policy, but if you want to take a fruity cup on the way out, I won't see anything.
Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Yeah.
He had a couple things that were really funny, and then you had his friend, the Michael Pena's friends, fucking T.I. and Polka Dot Man.
Yeah, David Dashmachow, who we've seen as Polka Dot Man. He played one of the crazy guys in Dark Knight. Remember when Two-Face was in the alley?
Yeah, he's been in like him. Oh, there's someone else in this movie. There's like a couple people that show up that
Yep.
the guy from The Wire has been in like multiple.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he always has these bit parts in Marvel movies for some reason.
It's just like, what the fuck? Yeah. It is
All
the
right.
multiverse already.
Uh,
Oh God.
yeah, but this was a good introduction. It was comedic and it was good comedy, and it used Paul Rudd to the Paul Ruddiousness, which
All
is
Ruddness.
good.
Easy for you to say. Easy for you to say. I mean, the whole it's almost like the entire like gang is comedic relief. We'll get to more of their goofy shticks in a little bit later on. So cutting back over to Hank, we see obviously Hank is invited to a presentation at the company that he founded, Pimtech, and runs into his daughter Hope Van Dyne, played by Evangeline Lilly. I hope I'm saying that name right. Evangeline Lilly, and his former protege Darren Cross, played by Corey Stoll, who I love. I haven't seen Corey Stoll in a lot of films, but
He's in House of Cards.
I was about to say the one thing I saw him in was House of Cards, and he fucking knocked it out of the park. So when I saw him in this, I'm like, okay. And, you know, I mean, again, villains are kind of a little bit on the weaker side for Marvel. Not too bad with this one, but we'll get more into once we get to the end here. But Darren Cross showcases shows him a prototype of the Yellowjacket suit, modeled after, of course, the Ant-Man suit that Hank wore. And Darren, though, has not had success in shrinking living tissue. So he does this big presentation, invites Hank over. We see there's a little weird dissension with Hope and Hank, or at least presumably there is, or Hope and Hank Pym. And Darren's trying to get like Hank to be like excited, and he kind of showcases, hey, we replicated your technology, and Hank's like, don't do this shit. He's like, so you admit it now after 30 years, you fucking admit that you were able to do this. Is like, there's a reason why I got rid of this, don't do this. And almost like that the Ant-Man thing is like a myth or a legend, but Darren's
a complete video of it happening.
Right, yeah.
This couldn't happen, but here it is happening.
Well, no one can identify who it is. Who is?
What? Because he gets. I got problems already. I'm going to tell you right now. For some reason, he's unseeable until later in this movie where the bad guy is like sniping in on him with his eyes all the time.
A madman.
It's ridiculous, but whatever.
I mean, I just don't understand why he would lure Hank out if he wasn't successful.
I think he's doing it to brag that, I got it this far without your help. Just imagine what's going to happen once I get it fully completed.
Maybe he's also trying to lure him into like seeing, like they worked together in the past, right? So seeing if he can,
he was the ex-protege.
Put together the final pieces for him.
Yeah, but he never gave away the full secrets. Which I get, the Ant-Man's just a myth, but there's footage of
the Ant-Man, or these people are just flying backwards by themselves.
Yeah,
which is exactly what happened in that
it happens.
Shadow boxing.
We'll get there.
I'm just Shadow taking hits.
That Shadow cow got flipped. So we cut back over to Scott for a second, and Scott borrows Luis's van and drops in on the birthday party of his daughter Cassie, who he runs into Cassie's soon-to-be stepfather, Officer Jim Paxton, who is, of course, not happy to see him, and his ex-wife Maggie tells him that he has to find a legitimate job and pay off his delinquent child support before she'll allow visitation with Cassie. Jim and his partner Gail insist that Scott leave the party after saying goodbye to Cassie. So again, quick little thing where we see, setup of he's made mistakes, he's trying to be good, he has a daughter, he has something, something to fight for, someone that he loves to fight for. I also love how he brings like a disgusting toy for her, and she's like, this thing's horrible, I love it.
Oh, she's like her dad's kid, but it's weird.
Yeah.
How long was he in prison?
Good question. They
keep talking like, oh, he's your hero. It's like, but did he even see you ever?
I mean, it's maybe assumed that it was maybe like a year or two, but I don't think
he was in prison for like 5 years or some shit, man.
I mean, listen, if you're gonna really get down to fucking time here,
Well, eventually we will.
Oh,
Start to work. I
Don't
do want to say
start.
before you go anywhere though, like his
Yeah.
wife, I really like the actress. She's constantly fucking underused in everything. Like
Yeah.
she's hardly used in this, and she's in Jurassic World, I
Judy
think,
Greer, yeah.
or something. They never use her in anything.
Yep. Well,
She's in some other. No, is it Jurassic World? No, it's another movie.
Halloween Kills.
Yeah, they fucking never use her properly. And her husband or the new man is like the most Italian looking human being alive. If you looked up in the Webster Dictionary Italian, you'd see that man. He's a good actor though. I like him.
So we cut back real fast to Pym Tech, and we see Hope and Darren are trying to shrink sheep to microscopic size while still testing out the formula. Their experiment fails, and the sheep is killed, and Darren insists they press forward with another sheep. Just so, obviously, he's trying to expedite the process of shrinking living tissue, and still, unfortunately, failing. Which, by the way, did anybody else laugh at the fact that whenever he shrinks somebody and it doesn't work, it just...
Little spum puddle. The thing is, this is actually extremely good technology already. If you can kill somebody and turn them into a little puddle of cum, you can just get rid of it. It's do you not see how
Patrick.
do you not see how useful that could be to covering up murderers?
I
You basically make somebody disappear except for a little tiny.
But that's not what they want. They want a soldier that can do everything.
Not multiple weapons that can turn people into
No,
just
because it's no different than if I kind of get your point, but I feel like it's more useful for them if they're able to have a shrinking person or a shrinking thing that they're able to manipulate. Which
I think it would be more useful for them to just
kill somebody
into a blob that you get rid of and not even know they're there ever. Instead of having somebody do kung fu in different fucking stages of small and big.
Well, then you can't do evasive, you can't do secret covert stuff, and you know what I mean. Yeah,
I mean, it's still useful technology. They act like it's we're not there.
Yeah,
it's
no, I
garbage.
Right, I get what you're saying. Yeah. No, you make a good point. But, Heather, your thoughts so far going into the
bum shooter.
I don't know why, but that scene is the one that made me laugh the most out of everything. It's well, do it again. I think he had more fun with the failures than seeing the actual success at the middle point of the movie.
I mean, he's basically psycho.
Well, towards the end for sure.
Eyes and everything.
Yeah. So we see that as time progresses, or as Scott's quickly realizing that it'll be more than a year before he can see Cassie again if he takes a minimum wage job. So he takes Lewis up on his offer to go after one big heist. He was like, no, I'm gotta be good. I gotta be, my heist days are over. So he takes Lewis on his offer. So this is where we were talking about this earlier. Excuse me. We were talking about this earlier with the scenes where Lewis is getting excited and describing who he heard all these things from. So he goes, I got a friend, Emily, who has a housekeeper, was dating Ernesto's friend Carlos, and she told Carlos that the man whose house she's cleaning has a giant safe and shouldn't be holding valuables. So Scott agrees to help him with the robbery. But I do love the Lewis thing of him describing.
It's arguably
so
the
good.
best scenes in the movie.
It's so fun. It's just fun.
For me, it's great. And he's probably if the only humor came from him. And when they're in a trio together, or a quadruple together, that'd be fine. But sometimes the standalone humor doesn't fall, or doesn't hit for me. Oh shit! What was I gonna say? The guy's a mechanical fucking engineer. You're telling me the best job he can get was Baskin and Robbins?
Well, for his criminal history.
Career, yes.
No, I don't believe that. Even with the guy's a fucking genius with that kind of ability, and you think people wouldn't hire him regardless of his especially knowing what he did. Was basically.
I mean, shit, I'd hire him for security.
Yeah.
I'd hire him for mechanical engineering.
No, I mean, in terms of security in relation to mechanical engineering is what I'm saying. Because he knows how to
I can't believe the only job he could get was Baskin Robbins. It's a bit of a stretch there with that kind of. How smart the man was.
It is kind of a stretch. 31 scoops or 31 flavors. It's fucking.
I worked there, and I'm not a mechanical engineer.
Wait, you have?
But yeah, I worked at Baskin Robbins.
Really?
I had a pink hat and everything.
Yeah.
It was great.
He's told us this multiple times.
Mm-hmm. We had a racket going on too. Trade ice cream for hats and shit. Like I worked in a mall, so everybody
the-
lived off each other.
By the way, can I say that I love the opening scene? I forgot to mention this too. Where he's talking to the guy, like the customer, he's the fucking idiot. He's like, "Can I get a hamburger?"
Oh, yeah.
No, we don't have that here. He's like, "What's hot and fresh?" Literally nothing. I just don't know, they're just fucking funny
The
shit.
worst thing about Baskin Robbins is the free fucking samples, because you get people come in every fucking 31 flavors. Well, we never had 31 at a time, but whatever we had, a free sample. Can I get a free sample? The line is like getting gigantic. Can I have a free sample? You know what you can have?
My foot in your ass out the door.
In a cup. So Luis picks up supplies for the break-in, and Kurt steals a communication technician's uniform. And that night, Kurt climbs up a pole outside of Hank's house and blocks the electrical circuit, cutting off all the phone communication. Scott climbs the fence and takes out the window sensors, then pries open a window and heads to the basement. He unlocks the basement door, only to find a second door that is fingerprint coated. Using tape, he lifts Hank's print and opens that door. When he gets to
the only job he could get is Baskin Robbins.
Yes, when he gets to that's the only thing. Yeah, when he gets to the safe, he realizes that he'll need some ingenuity to break the steel door. He drills small holes around the locks, then squirts in water and uses nitrogen to freeze it. The frozen water then warps the steel and causes the bolts to shoot out. When he opens the safe, the only thing inside is a weird-looking bodysuit and helmet, so he decides to grab that and then heads out. Meanwhile, we see that Hank has been watching this entire thing upstairs in the security room. So, or security monitors. Right? He can only get a job at I mean, I thought this was pretty fucking clever. Seemed pretty legit to me as far as the whole break-in process, and I do like that, like, you know, obviously they're showcasing that Scott's like a thief or, you know, criminal, you know, whatever, but he's not like a fucking idiot. Well, not a total idiot. He has some level of intellect to have some problem-solving skills and some, you know what I mean? So, like, yeah.
He's like a genius in most
genius-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good scene. I enjoyed this scene for what it was. I mean, it's kind of weird that like he wouldn't just go about a different way than like plot the whole thing and break my house, do all this. I need to see.
Well, he did do all of it, but then he just didn't, you know, oh, there's a safe. Then he didn't realize what the safe was, and then he's like, well, the only way to fucking do that is X, Y,
No,
Z.
I mean with Hank, like with Pim watching him the whole time. Like, there's probably better ways to go about this than having your safe blown out.
You know, an application.
Whatever. Maybe get him a job at your company and see how he works there.
I can get you a job at Baskin Robbins.
I'm more of a Baskin Robbins guy. Like, what the fuck, man? There seems like a very different way you can go about the storyline, but it's okay. It is what it is. That it worked, or it has worked to this point.
Heather, what'd you think of the break-in?
It definitely felt like fucking Mr. and Mrs. Smith a bit to me. With imitation spies.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
It's I don't know why they had to go to that length of it. And it's just, all right, moving on.
I want to see you work so you earn. And you know what? There was more than the suit in that vault. There was like big glass vials of fucking weird liquids. I saw that shit.
What kind of weird liquid?
I don't know. One was green, one was red. Christmas liquids.
It was just Dayquil and NyQuil. Don't get too excited. So of course Scott goes back being dejected, having not gotten anything valuable. The group heads back to Lewis's apartment. Scott goes into the bathroom and examines the suit he stole, easier for me to say, wondering why it was so heavily guarded. He notices tubes full of red and blue liquid, and out of curiosity, puts it on, steps into the bathtub to get a better look at himself in the mirror. But noticing there was a red button on the glove, he pushes it and instantly shrinks, becoming just a half an inch tall. Lewis comes into the bathroom and he turns on the water in the tub, which is like a tidal wave for a tiny Scott, and he hears a voice coming from the earpiece in the helmet. He tries pushing a blue button to return to normal size, but it's broken. Panicked, he jumps away from the water and finds himself sailing across the room. He lands in a crack and falls through to the apartment below, and in that room there's a party going on, and Scott realizes he's on a record player while the needle is moving towards him. jumps free and lands on the floor while people are dancing, so he's trying to avoid the giant footsteps. He gets under the door and into the hallway where he's promptly sucked into a vacuum cleaner. And then when the dust bag gets empty, he jumps again, this time landing on a rat. He then runs away, but lands on a mouse trap, and when it's triggered, it sends him flying out through a window and into the rainy night. But then he sees a raindrop as big as his head before landing on a car. The impact jarred the blue button free, and he grows back to normal size. So we finally have the first transformation of the suit. We don't have a full explanation yet of everything, but we see that there's on the handprints, there's 2 buttons on where the thumbs go, or right where the thumbs are supposed to be triggered, and he almost fucking dies.
Right? No, he's indestructible.
He's indestructible.
No, legit, I didn't know. He fell at the bathtub, and for his size, that's like falling off a building.
Yep.
Landed, cracked the ground, and was completely fine. So he doesn't take fall damage.
He's immortal.
He's like Captain America.
Super
The needle goes right in between his fucking legs and doesn't do anything to him. So
right.
I don't understand. Did I miss it? Where they established that he's can't be hurt?
No.
So why is he scared of bullets?
Because they would fucking crush him. I think Heather, you feeling pretty good over there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't know. The power scaling, obviously they're really lax with it. But in most movies, they establish something in the past. They've established, and then they've gone ridiculous with the follow-up movies.
This
movie just never really establishes outside of he can change his size.
There is a little weird with the inconsistency as far as durability / power in the suit, which they do semi address later on during the training part about the whole throwing a punch. If you punch too weak, nothing will happen. If you punch too hard, you blow your enemy's brains out. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't know if that has anything to do with the indestructibility level. And it's not like this isn't the last time this will happen either. There'll be other instances.
This actually happens throughout the entire film.
Well, it's not the entire movie. It's only when he's wearing the suit,
which is pretty much 70% of the rest of the movie.
But other than that, I mean, the visuals are fun. I think my favorite was when he just jumped out of the fucking airbag of the vacuum cleaner. I think that was my favorite part of the whole thing. But yeah, that scene was a lot of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibes.
That's
sure.
Massively. And I was wondering,
obviously,
when he was in the club, if people stepped on him, would he die?
We didn't know at that point. Presumably. Which is weird. You know what? That actually brings up a good point. Because
Hank is fucking torturing this man.
He could have just pushed him off. Because he does it later.
Mm-hmm. He could have, by wearing the suit, he could have killed a bunch of people by accident.
Well,
by pressing the button while in the suit, according to JP, he's dead anyway. So,
well, he was dead at the beginning of the movie in prison.
Basically, yeah. But I mean, besides the craziness of the power scaling, what do you think of the scene with him nearly just all the craziness going on?
That's definitely a scene that needs to be watched again on an acid trip.
Why would you say that, Heather?
Because it feels like I'm on one watching it without being influenced by anything.
Well, just wait. What is it? 2 more movies? 2 more movies? We'll get there. Yep.
No, it was a fun scene. Definitely reminded me of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids a lot, but it was meant to, I think. And this is this is a good introduction to how a lot of this movie is going to work moving forward with the scaling of sizes.
Yep.
And what really is the selling point visually for the movie when he's that small, and what that means. So I mean, I didn't hate the scene or anything. It was just okay, did they establish why does he know everything that's happening to him? Does he have a camera in the suit?
Presumably.
I mean, that's the only way, right?
Yep.
Because he's
he does have a camera in the suit. We established that later on.
Yeah, every time,
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was going to say real quick, actually, since we're on the subject, the suit itself, I think that visually, for an Ant-Man suit, seemed pretty legit. Obviously, if you look at the if you look at some of the comic versions of the Ant-Man suit, no. Just absolutely no.
I like the
And
fact that it didn't look like an ant at all. Which is the good
well,
part.
like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, the big silver thing
Yeah,
with like the
yeah,
fucking
with
like
yeah, the mandibles.
which there's an Easter egg in a future movie that we'll get to that shows that helmet, but we'll talk about that much later on down the road. But I do like that it's like, you're right, it doesn't look like an ant. It looks like almost like for lack of a better phrase, like a military, like scientific, like functioning
parts
suit.
of it, the rest of it does look like exactly like he says. It looks like a biker jacket, or like, you know, like a not a biker jacket, a biker suit, like the motorcycle.
But
Yeah.
that makes sense. He designed it for function, not fashion.
Yeah.
So I liked it. It seemed pretty legit to me, despite, like, you know, again, not looking
Seemed like it was made for the time that they specified at the beginning of the movie, which I liked, with the like red buttons on the hands and stuff like that. It wasn't like super high tech.
Yeah.
Which would make sense because it was like established long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But just,
I mean, it wasn't bad.
What'd you think, Heather? I mean, as far as the as far as like the aesthetic of the suit.
The egg could have been a little better. It could have made the eyes a little more bulbous on the helmet, and that would have made it more believable to be closer to an ant.
Right.
But
give him 6 arms.
That would be interesting.
Oh God, no.
I'm glad
especially with it being Paul Rudd, that fucking blooper with him dancing.
I'm glad. I like the way the suit look. I wouldn't want it to look like an ant. The whole name is because his diminutive size. More than
I kind of like that more. I think that like, you know,
and his super strength. Because ants are super strong.
Well, he carries his strength as a normal. We'll get there. So Scott obviously fucking freaks the fuck out at this point, races home, takes off the suit, and realizing that someone had been tracking him all this long, decides to return the suit back to Hank safe. He easily breaks into the house again, puts the suit back, but when he gets out, he's surrounded by cops.
Would you do this?
Huh?
I would never do this. I'd keep that suit 100%. Fuck it. That's awesome. I can get really tiny. Think about the shit I could do.
He didn't know how to work, so he's in a panic. But I love it. He's like, "No, I'm not. I didn't steal it. I was just returning the thing I stole."
For a guy that's like has taken risks with his life, you'd think he'd take that risk and keep the suit. But that's just me. He went to jail for risking his life for cat burgling.
Yep.
You'd think he'd keep the suit and not return it. Like he does the Boy Scout thing, which they tried to turn him into, but like you wouldn't be in jail if. I mean, I know he's Robin Hood, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's put it this way. Realistically, knowing what we know later on in the movie, the cops would have come to him in either way.
Yeah.
So, he gets arrested and he's brought to prison where Paxton is waiting for him. Gale tells Paxton that Scott's lawyer is there. Confused, Scott's to go see the lawyer, and of course, he didn't ask for one and doesn't know who the hell it is. And of course, the lawyer is none other than Hank. Love the fact that Hank uses ants to cover up the camera.
Wouldn't they be like curious as to
with ants in this movie?
What was that?
Camera?
What was that, Basin?
Wouldn't they be curious as to why they can't see the camera?
Maybe they're just not
if
looking.
they're actively watching, but it's probably just like no one's actually watching. It's just recorded.
Right. That's probably what it is. So
I didn't understand. Okay, the whole ant thing fucking confused me because at this point, I'm not gonna lie, I was half paying attention to this movie. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
It was never my favorite.
Yep.
I'm still watching it, but like I might have missed out on. Explain to me why he can communicate with ants, and it's only ants that they've like implanted neural sensors into, or something, or is it like all ants?
All ants.
Why? Eh?
What? Why did he do it?
No, why can he?
What do you mean can't he? He can.
Why can he? Why can he communicate with ants?
He has a neural sensor that allows it to connect his brain waves into like the same frequency as an ant antenna. There's a device.
Yeah, I've seen it. I saw it in the movie, but I must have fucking
It's after the scene. They
not
explain.
paid attention during that part.
Well, if you're not gonna do the homework,
I watched the movie twice. What do you want from me? I can have questions.
notes, damn it,
No,
notes. We'll get there. We'll get there.
All right, well.
So, Hank
He
offers.
really bought into this ant idea, didn't he? Motherfucker.
I,
It's like, we're not gonna make the suit look like an ant, but we will control only ants. No other insects, just ants. But it could really use a wasp in this scenario. No ants. You're thinking
beetles
too
are like
big.
beetles are double the size. I fucking said ants.
So you want to change the suit to look like a no?
Is this because you only had uncles growing up? Yes.
You're fucking psycho.
So Hank offers Scott two choices: life in prison or follow his instructions. So Scott is, of course, bewildered. So Hank tells him that he allowed him to steal the suit as a test. So Scott is taken back to his cell, and then, of course, an army of ants bring him back the suit, which...
Oh, they give a great countdown.
He puts it on and shrinks and then quickly escapes from the prison. One of Hank's ants spreads its wings, and Scott climbs on it and flies over the city.
Thank God the Wire had to take a drink as soon as he showed up, because there was no way he'd finish that in 10 seconds. After looking at the helmet, turning it around, looking at it again. Like,
yep.
I got the tension.
It happens.
So palpable.
Hank tells Scott that he invented the well, we'll get to that in a second when he wakes up. So I love how he's like, oh, you're gonna get on board Ant 107B or whatever the number was. He's like
247.
Yeah, yeah. He's like 247. He's like 247.
How do you have a 247? Wouldn't it be like 1,000,000,007?
Well, he probably has only a select group of ants, only the A team of ants.
I don't know. You see how many ants are used in this movie?
What?
Do you see how many ants are used in this movie?
But none were harmed. But none were harmed in the making of this film.
Antoine was.
Anthony.
Oh.
It's Anthony, damn it. So flies up, he passes out from flying up too high, and he wakes up. I'd be fucking petrified. Wakes up in Hank's house in a bed, surrounded by ants. I'd shit myself.
Why was he surrounded by ants?
They were keeping guard, essentially.
Yes.
You need that many ants?
I mean, fire ants are fucking... Nope.
You only need one spot.
I'm starting to get why he went with ants.
You starting to get why he went with ants?
So many different types.
There are. So, at this point, Hank sits him down with Hope and explains the whole situation, what's going on. He says that he invented the suit, but he was afraid it was going to be misused, and so he locked it away. Darren had found out about the shrinking technology, but when Hank wouldn't give it to him, Darren forced Hank out of Pym Tech. And when Hope realized how dangerous Darren was, she teamed up with Hank to stop him. Of course, kind of like pretending that she's really on Darren's side. Hank tells Scott that he needs him to become Ant-Man to stop people like Darren. Scott realizes he has a chance to become a true hero, the kind of father his daughter deserves. So there's a little bit of back and forth, some tension between them where, like, Hank wants to choose Scott because he's been watching him for a while and thinks he has the skills necessary and how he was impressed with how he broke in and stole the suit. But of course, Hope is very persistent, saying, give me the suit, give me the thing. I have the training, I have the abilities, I have the skill. I can do this. And he really reluctantly says no every single time. So we see, I love how they go back and forth. Olivia's like, well, Darren's getting close to figuring out the technology and we need to stop him because it's going to be bad. He's like, why? Well, the Pym particles can affect your brain and can affect your way of thinking. And if you get exposed to it too much, then it will really mess up your brain. He goes, my suit, the helmet protects you from that, which, okay, I'll buy it. But Darren's does not. So Darren's probably clouded from the adverse effect of the technology. And I love how Scott's like, maybe we should call the Avengers. And understandably so, Hank's like, never gonna fucking trust a Stark. And it's like, fair. And then I love how Scott's like, listen, you want me to be on your team? Fine. I got you covered. My days of breaking into places and stealing shit is done. What do you need me to do? I need you to break into place and steal some shit.
I like that moment.
Yeah, that was very good. Like you had this like buildup of like the tension and the tense moment, and then I need you to break into some place and steal some shit. That could work. So we get a little bit of setup, obviously on everything. But so far so good. Heather?
It,
He's frozen in
Ah,
time.
there we go.
Yeah,
She's
there you
back.
go.
Up. Hey, all right. She's back.
the microphone is not working now? What the hell?
No, you were frozen in time.
You were frozen for a second. You're good now.
Okay. But it gives us a deeper look into Pym and what he thinks of what he created himself. Giving you that thought of, okay, well, maybe. And now with him now fully showing his hatred for Stark Industries at this point. It's going good for storytelling.
I also do like how it does set up, like you said, Heather, Hank's role. Like, okay, we understand a little bit more, not just in terms of like, all right, yeah, he hates Stark. Okay, fine, we got that a little bit from the beginning, but it more so kind of sets up, well, why doesn't he do it? He's too old. He's already done this too many times. His body can't take it. Why don't you send Hope? And he is like, well, I've lost her mother. I'm not going to lose her. That doesn't give away everything yet, but just says, he's worried. And so, Scott kind of understands the role. So it's...
They establish why he does what he does, but I also, knowing what happens in the future and when eventually the truth comes out from him, it kind of undermines the fact that he hasn't told her already. Like his relationship is already obviously suffering with his kid, and the moment that it does come out doesn't warrant the need for him to make that relationship suffer as much. It's like, okay, this is a moment, really? Like she already dislikes you, man. Come on. And she like, it's like, I get like him not. He needed to explain one essential thing, and he holds it off for almost literally no reason.
Well,
like, I mean, if I'm going to take into account when he does tell her, it's like just like it doesn't really make sense considering the man's old as fuck. She's not that young either. So like, I mean, the moment was never right. This is the right moment.
he gets reluctant. I mean, Jesus Christ. Considering what happens, I think I sort of get it, just from a sense of like, I want nothing. I want her nowhere near this shit.
I mean, I would like, I think at some point in time, I get if she was a lot younger, but at some point in time, I mean, Jesus, like,
well,
the obvious thing would be to tell her what happened, and it's like, no, I'm gonna hide that forever, and I'm just gonna like make you hate me for some reason.
well,
like it's kind of like that point was kind of stupid to me. Like realistically, most people would have told, but whatever, I'll accept it. He didn't tell her for the story reasons,
but
and she's obviously like a savant at it, so.
Right.
But I get why he wouldn't want to lose her or put her in jeopardy. He doesn't really extrapolate on like what toll the suit takes on him, does he? He just says like, I can't do it anymore because my body can't take it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's old as fuck, so obviously. But like, yeah, I was under the impression that it takes an additional toll on you outside of that.
Well, you're basically if I can remember
you're rearranging like your
atoms.
atomic structure, or
right?
Something like
so
that. Yeah,
you fuck around with that too much, it's gonna possibly get unstable. So maybe not all at once, but maybe parts of you could. I'm theorizing here based off of all the shit we see in this movie, but yeah, that's kind of what my guess would be, and so that does make sense, especially where Scott's only done it once at this point. Obviously, he does it more throughout the training montage that's coming up next. But yeah, okay, you know what I mean?
They
Like,
don't need to extrapolate on it, but I think like if this was going to be like a standalone to a franchise, outside of just Ant-Man 2, it would behoove them to kind of like put a risk factor in there, because it always helps knowing like like if your hero is putting something on the line to do something for good, you know what I mean?
you would have had.
You've seen it time and time again where somebody has to sacrifice something in order to gain strength.
He sort of. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, he sort of does at the very, very end.
I'm gonna tell you, they didn't need to do it for this movie, especially where the where they go. But if like in terms of like from Ant-Man to Ant-Man 2, and that's that. But if they wanted to like progress this, I think if like Edgar Wright had his way, they probably would have stressed it a bit more as a standalone, and then revealing more in the second. It'd probably be more than just 2 films.
Right.
But I mean, it's a nitpick, and it doesn't really matter in the end.
But let's get to that training montage, shall we? So we see that Scott gets trained in martial arts and how to lead ant colonies, going over the different types of ants, explaining how, how the receiver works, where he can control or manipulate ants with his mind. He practices his timing with shrinking and growing back. I don't give a shit. Him running into the door is fucking hilarious to me. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Hank tells him that one piece of technology he'll need to steal from the suit from Darren is in an abandoned shield building. But before we get to that, more of the training montage, we do see that, at one point Scott does talk with Hope about, listen, I'm expendable. You're not. That's the whole reason why your father is doing this. I get it. You know what I mean? And she goes, all right, fine. Fair enough. Kind of that, good, feel good moment. And
I will give kudos to both Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. They both in great shape for this movie. In terms of like a superhero, like every superhero usually gets in shape, but some don't to that extent. I mean, Paul Rudd, I mean, he's not a young man either, and he got in great shape. And Evangeline Lilly, she's like in her late 30s in this movie. She's been for like female protagonists that rarely do. She's in phenomenal shape in this movie.
can I just say though, I hated her hair in this movie.
Yeah, she had the Karen hair. They gave her that like severe cut because she was supposed to be a severe character, but it looked,
I know, but
after a while it was like,
hated it.
yeah.
It looked like she was wearing a wig.
I mean, I'm
Yes,
pretty sure she was.
probably was.
I'm almost 100% sure she was.
By the way, I do love the I did love the scene
The
where
punch to face?
yeah, he's like, were you aiming for the hand?
Yeah.
So again, just fun little moments here. But so finally through the training montage, we see that Hank finally explains to Hope how her mother died. There was an ICBM that had been launched at the U.S. and Hank was trying to stop it with his wife, but even at the ant size, he couldn't get inside. So she had a similar suit called the Wasp. So she decided to shrink to a subatomic size and was able to stop the missile, but she couldn't return from that size and was lost in the quantum realm, which he explains later on that there's a regulator in the suit that prevents that from shrinking too much. And if you enter a quantum realm, you're basically entering a state that's so small and so infinitesimal that concept of like reality, space, and time almost are non-existent. Thought that was a bullshit thing. It's actually not. It's actually a theoretical theory in science.
Science gets really fucked up. That's
Oh my
like
God.
time and shit is all wacky, which is always cool when they introduce that in Marvel movies or in any movie because it always adds to the intrigue. This is the point. Like, I know it needed to happen, but him telling her and her like just welling up on the side is just like, I don't know. And then how it culminated with Paul Rudd coming in, and
This is nice,
that was
isn't
I actually this is the one thing I hated in this movie, because the one time you're gonna try to do an emotional scene,
He
then you
fucking
have,
ruins
and it wasn't even like funny for me. It was just like the whole balance of this movie now shifted to be completely a farce.
I think if they wanted to do that, they shouldn't have lingered on him so long. Like do like the little
think
joke
that was
and
a
then
I think that was a big misstep, because they should have just left it as like an emotional scene, even though it was, for
Agreed,
me,
yeah.
I didn't think it was a great emotional scene. It was one of the only emotional scenes in the movie. And it was more like, I don't know, it didn't get a laugh out of me at all. It was just like
Not for me either, but
yeah.
but the training montage was fun. You know, revealing about the quantum realm, obviously that's going to play a much larger role. Hell, we know that the third Ant-Man movie is going to be called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, so chances are there's going to be more involved with it in the future.
Everything mania all of a sudden.
What?
Why is everything mania?
Damn it, pal! I gotta make a good promo. I don't know. Beats me. But so now things are kind of falling more into place. We understand Hank's role. Always like, I didn't want you anywhere near this stuff because I didn't want to lose you the same way I lost your mother. So now we kind of get the emotional, well, lack thereof, moment. I do agree with you, Basement, in the sense of like, yeah, it did that comedic moment did kind of pull it did pull it away. I mean, Heather, what did you think of like the training montage, that explanation, all that stuff?
The training montage was pretty good because Pim coming in after she punches him in the face. She's been waiting to do that. She's like, I could feel that through that entire interaction between all three of them. As soon as they all met up, but it was good to see him doing the training in the suit and failing so hilariously miserably at every task. And the explanation of everything along the way at the same time is it's really cool to see them do that with another of their stories. You go back to what we've already seen. They weren't so good at getting that part in at the right spot. I think they got this one in at the right spot.
I think there's another mania. I swear, like Doctor Strange was a mania at some point in time.
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
Before they changed the name or something.
Mania, no, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of, but we'll get there. Sure, we'll find something. But the last piece of technology that they're going to need in order to steal a suit from Darren is in an abandoned shield building. So when Scott flies to the building, he sees that it's not an abandoned Stark Towers or Stark Industries building anymore. It's in fact the new Avengers compound that we saw at the end of Age of Ultron. So pressing forward, says Scott's like, no, don't worry, it's fine. I don't think anybody's home. Lands on the roof and is immediately greeted by none other than Anthony Mackie, a.k.a. Sam Wilson, a.k.a. the Falcon, who arrives to investigate. And I don't give a shit. This is my favorite scene in the whole fucking movie. I don't care.
This is the scene that was I would say is one of the reasons that
You hated
Edgar Wright probably wasn't part of this movie.
Oh, okay.
This seems like a bit more shoehorned in to make this movie be part of.
Absolutely. I don't give a shit. I still thought it was fun.
I did like it. Especially using Falcon because he doesn't really get a lot of screen time. And after them establishing that he was one of the Avengers at the end of the Ultron movie, but the quote unquote new Avengers that they had, it's nice to see that and them going one on one and kind of it flexed what Ant-Man could do.
Yes, that's the big thing that I really. There's a couple things I liked about it. I thought the dialogue was brief, and I thought the action was the action comedy balance was, I think, in this scene a good little. It was just the right amount of both for me anyway. Just the scene.
I also really liked when he showed up and he's like, "I'm saving the world." He's like, "I know about that." Like they didn't just go to fighting immediately. They actually conversed because they're both. He doesn't know him, but like the character of Falcon is just not going to attack immediately as long as.
Who are you, Ant-Man? What? You never heard of me? You never heard of me? And he does that awkward smile.
Well, I mean, this establishes Ant-Man as being like nobody knows what the fuck you are, man.
Yep. Fuck.
It was a good scene. Like Frank says in the chat, it was complete fan service. Yeah, but I mean, this is the fan service I can get behind. It was it's shoehorned in there to establish a connection between the two. But if you're gonna shoehorn something in, at least put the effort into making it entertaining, and they did.
Right. And it's not like it was a one-sided fight. There was moments where each of them got their own, which I thought was pretty interesting.
It's not like Falcon's never been presented as like on the S tier level, he's like a B or C tier guy, but So he's obviously gonna his fault. He's on. I mean, you might look at Ant-Man as being a B tier, where he's a C tier.
I don't know, but Heather, what'd you think of the Falcon versus Falcon versus Ant-Man?
And then I liked it because they both their own little quips back at each other, and it's a great scene to bring him towards the Avengers
Mm-hmm.
in more of a light, uh, rather than him just saying, "Let's call the Avengers."
Right.
It's a very good way to introduce.
The shoehorns him into the team a little bit, especially since he bested Falcon.
My question to you, though, this could as easily have been a post-credit scene and still hold the same worth.
Mm,
I don't mind that it's part of the movie because if you take this out, the movie's only about an hour and a half long. I know it has a runtime of 2 hours, but they're including the credits,
Yeah.
and the credits are long as fuck. The actual movie's about an hour and 40 minutes.
so here's what I'll say about this. I mean, obviously, this is really hard because we try to obviously do these reviews where we look at these movies standalone as much as humanly possible. Considering what we know was going to happen with Ant-Man in the next movie, it's a setup to make him tied into them more directly than just being an outside. You know what I mean? So
No, I get it. I mean, okay, they have a post-credit scene in this movie that we'll get to that does I'm assuming alludes to him, even though it's kind of like doesn't really mean anything.
yeah, we'll get there. Yep.
I feel like you could have had this as a post credit, and it still would have been the fan service that it is. I don't mind it being part of the movie because it does. They did it relatively naturally, even though you can tell it's fan service and shoehorned in. It's still like they interweaved it in part of the plot enough for it to work, but it could still be a post credit scene. Relatively, it would be. I mean, that being given to be quite a long one.
I would have. You're talking about the final scene in the movie could have been an end credit scene, not this fight.
The fight's too long for it to be an end credit scene, to be honest.
But I see. Yes, if you're talking about the very last part, I could take that. I could take that. So obviously he gets the equipment.
I was gonna say before we move on
sorry.
to like the training montage between Hope and Lang. It also establishes, and I've seen the next movie. I'm not a fan of the next movie, but it is that like the one good thing it does is it establishes that someone's already better than him. Therefore, we don't have to go through an origin story for Wasp. We're getting the origin story in this movie,
Right.
and it establishes that she already knows how to handle things. It's like a 2-in-1, and I'm okay with that because the next movie shouldn't be another origin story for another character.
Right.
It should just be the add-on. In this movie, they handle it well. The next movie, I'll have to watch it again because
The next Ant-Man
from
movie.
what I recall, I fucking did not like that movie.
Yeah.
People didn't.
Yeah, I wasn't huge on it either. So at this point now, Darren Cross has finally had success at shrinking a lamb, so he envisions himself taking over Pimtech. He invites Hank to the grand unveiling and then calls Hope and tells her that he has increased security, including covering all the vents with microscopic mesh. So they all now realize that the job will be harder than they thought as far as breaking in. They'll need more people, which is when Lewis, Kurt, and Dave are brought in. Lewis poses a security. I fucking... God, I love it. I also love when he's like, "Hey, you want to check out the suit?" And he like fucking shrinks on his shoulder and freaks them all out. And he's like,
didn't like that scene. He's like, "I'm not scared of anything, man," and then he gets scared of like a little guy on his shoulder.
I mean,
that I didn't care for, but everything after that, I laughed at.
Yeah, with like them, like it's like these are your people, fucking idiots.
Yeah.
So Lewis poses as a security guard and lowers the water pressure so Scott can get in through the pipes. Scott then plants explosives throughout the building, but when he tries to steal the suit, he of course unfortunately gets caught in a glass cage by Darren, who had anticipated the burglary. Darren plans, of course, to reveals while he's doing the presentation with Hank that he plans on selling the technology to none other than Hydra. Dun dun dun.
Doing great things now.
What?
He's like, they're doing great things now. Have you heard?
Yeah.
With Hydra.
Hydra 2.0, man.
I
Now,
know.
fun
It's changed, they're not what they used to be. They're doing great things.
fun fact, and I didn't realize this until much later on, and it's honestly a blink and you'll miss it. So if you don't like look for it and like stop to look for it, you won't see it. One of the men in the room that is a Hydra agent does have the symbol of the 10 rings tattooed on their neck.
Well,
Not like we'll ever
I
see the
have
10
no idea.
It's not like we'll ever see the
But I
10
haven't
rings
seen-
again.
I haven't seen that movie.
It's not like we'll ever see the 10 rings again. But just again, blink and you'll miss it moment. Not anything major, and honestly, not even anything major in that movie. But just fun little fact. But anyway, so we see that like Darren's like starting to go a little cuckoo. He's off the deep end. Hank warns him about that. He warns him about like, he warns him about all that stuff as far as the it's clouding your judgment, clouding your mind. But instead, he's like, nope, I'm gonna fucking kill you now. All guns are all out. Chaos erupts when Scott breaks free and takes out the Hydra agents, but of course Hank gets shot. Not poor Hank, no.
No, he dies and then he's not dead. Don't worry.
No, he gets shot. That's all. You can still get shot.
Yeah, there's a point in time where he falls over. His eyes are like open. He looks like he's dead, and I'm like, there is. Rewatch it.
All right, fine. I'll look at it back again.
There is a point like he fall after he gets shot. Somebody goes and grabs him, and he like is literally acting like he's dead.
So Scott breaks free, takes out all the agents. Darren goes running into the chopper to get on the roof and escapes just before he can catch up.
Vaporized.
Well, he steals the Yellowjacket suit with him. Hank and Hope break out of the place because now on lockdown, cops are all over the place. I have to admit, this part was kind of cool. So the entire time we've seen Hank with his keys, there's been a keychain with a tank on, and he goes, "It's not a keychain." And he is able to use some of the PIM particles and make the tank full size and just fucking barrel through and break out of the building. And just completely decimates it. So, of course, Scott's trying to sneaks into the helicopter with them and explains, and he goes...
Someone dies before this.
Someone dies?
Anthony.
That's right. Poor Anthony.
He got hit with a sniper rifle. Like, in what fucking world is this guy shooting an ant into the air? And specifically the one he's riding.
Yeah, it's a cloud because he's that good. No scope, baby. So Anthony gets taken down. Scott is able to sneak into the helicopter just as they start to leave. They have a dialogue exchange saying like, all this for a burglary. He goes, wasn't just a burglary, and then you just see the entire PIM Industries or PIM Tech just blow up. We see the fight going back and forth. This part I also enjoyed too, where Scott is taking out all the different people on the helicopter. Of course, he goes to fight Darren, and Darren does put on the Yellowjacket suit. So now they're fucking fighting inside the helicopter. They actually lock themselves in the briefcase, and they're fighting inside the briefcase as the entire fucking helicopter is crashing. So
the use of like the size differential and turning small, turning big, and everything was masterfully used in this movie. It's one of the biggest selling points for me for this movie.
Yes.
And they use it for a lot of different plot points, especially with the fighting scenes, which is different, something we haven't seen, which keeps this movie kind of on its. I don't know. At this point, this movie has kind of killed me with the amount of humor that's involved in it.
I do like how the fights are creative enough with the shrinking and the growth size that it's not boring. It's not the same.
They don't overuse it, but I also think that aids in the fact that the movie's only about an hour and a half.
Yes.
An hour and 40 minutes. And they don't go crazy with the fight scenes. They use the small size for a lot of this movie as like an exploration scene.
Right.
Instead of a fight scene, which kind of... It's not like Age of Ultron, where every 20 minutes we're getting a fight. That lasts 20 minutes.
Right. And even the final fight's broken up into two parts, because once they get out of there, Scott is able to get Darren inside a bug zapper, which I just thought that was a little fucking funny. But then Jim Paxton shows up to arrest Scott before he can destroy the suit. Darren goes to, of course, Jim and Casey's house and threatens their lives, hoping to draw Scott in. But before we get into the actual final fight, Heather, what'd you think of like the whole like the craziness with like the Pym Tech blowing up, the fight on the helicopter, the fight in the briefcase, all that fun stuff up to this point?
The fight in the briefcase was actually pretty awesome to me because the size differential, I think, kind of nailed.
Yeah.
Just a house key, literally the size of a house, fly by. That was pretty awesome.
The iPhone.
Oh yeah, the iPhone going off. Yeah. And one thing we didn't mention earlier was the power scaling is that even though Ant-Man / Yellowjacket in this case are smaller, they still have the same normal strength that they would at full human size. So that's why even when they're small, they're still able to throw the strength.
Be dead when you fell 100.
Yeah, exactly. See. So I mean that might explain the durability factor.
I think they're looking at the durability of an ant, where you can drop an ant from whatever height it's gonna live.
Unless it's in water. But
even then they may live.
I know,
Those
right?
things are fucking resilient as shit.
So we see that Scott does show up at Casey's house. They start fighting. I love.
Oh, I wanted to ask you before we get into this. You know the fight? I might have missed something. The fight that he had with Yellowjacket after they left the helicopter and everything. They randomly switched sizes, and it seems at like the most inopportune time. Was it like something malfunctioning in the suit that I didn't catch, or were they just turning big for no apparent? Like he turns big to hit a fucking barbecue. Why?
Because if he was small, he would have landed on the hot charcoals.
He's unkillable.
Well, maybe it's just instinct.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
big. He still hit the hot charcoals.
Well,
what's the difference?
I don't know. They didn't explain anything like that. But then again, don't forget where the buttons are accessible. So I mean, it could have been an accident too.
Yeah. I mean, they do a lot of like size changes in that specific part of the fight. That I was like, I thought it was just like something had broken.
Could have
or
been.
Something
It could have very well been. You know,
that I missed, but whatever.
I mean, on top of that, it's not that we've ever heard about Hank saying he had to actually perform not like hand-to-hand combat with somebody in the same size. So
the thing is too, like it seems like when one turns big, the other turns big in that one. So it's kind of weird.
Well, because it's unfair the other way around, you know.
What? No, it'd be beneficial.
That's what I'm saying.
I hate you.
Anyway, so the final fight happens inside Casey's inside Casey's room, where they, of course, they're fighting on like the Thomas the Tank Engine set, which I thought was
hilarious.
Ants are fucking sacrificing themselves. He's blasting it. Thomas is fucking flying. I forgot to mention too, they also introduced the Pym Tech little discs where if you throw one can shrink, one can grow. I love how one actually gets thrown over to Thomas, and then Thomas fucking explodes and he's giant size and takes out the entire fucking house. Good marketing there. So we finally get to the point where Darren's about to kill Casey and I'm trying to remember the name of the Jim Paxton. So Officer Paxton and Casey, and realizes the only way he can get inside the Yellowjacket suit to disarm it is, of course, to go subatomic. So he goes subatomic size and he causes Darren to shrink to nothing. But unfortunately, Lang is now trapped inside that quantum realm. He shrinks so much to the point where he gets so small, but he does stop, and he can hear Casey's voice and manages to somehow rewire the suit and grabs one of the enlarging discs, which, by the way, if he didn't fucking catch that thing, he would have been fucking screwed.
The only job he can get is Baskin Robbins.
Yep.
I'm looking for that.
Gets it on and is able to bring himself back to normal size. Following the battle, a grateful Paxton covers for Scott, so he would not have to go back to prison, saying we're not looking for you anymore. And we see the another fun scene where Hank wonders if, is there's a chance now. He goes, you returned from the quantum realm, but you don't remember anything about it. He goes, no. He goes, so maybe there's a chance she still is alive. And we see him kiss Hope. I love this part where he's like, what's going on here? He goes, well, if it is, shoot me again. He's like, I'm sorry, Hope, you've been crazy kissing me like that. I'll see you later, Hank. Scott, yeah, you're full of shit. Oh yeah.
I will say that the two leads, the romantic, didn't really have much chemistry at
No.
all.
No.
I mean, the writing in this part was alright, but like they had no chemistry.
Yeah, it didn't
It's
seem
another
like, by the way,
shoehorn
yeah.
the romantic shit in
Yeah.
that like they didn't give time to
So then, of
at
course,
all. I mean, they could have done something with it. They kind of allude to it, but they
Yeah.
never really like it there. I don't know.
Luis at the end, of course, tells the story of Scott that apparently someone is looking for him, and does, of course, the story back
great.
and forth. Which, by the way, we get our Stan Lee cameo. That mad girl,
Yeah.
Superfly. Fucking love it. Of course, alluding to the fact that the Falcon is looking for him. So, we'll talk about those two. We have the mid-credit and a post-credit scene. We'll talk about those in a second. How about the end scene with Scott going subatomic and then everything kind of wrapping up at the end?
Wanna go first?
Whoever.
I can go.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I first watched this movie, I really enjoyed the like last fight scene because it was like the difference between like the comedy of it being fought on a small scale and the seriousness of it when you're on that small scale. On the second rewatch, I think the comedy of it has outworn its welcome. If they didn't have so many fucking comedic moments in this movie that completely derailed any seriousness you might have thought,
Mhm.
this scene would have been okay. I also don't know if I'd put it as the final scene, but it could be
Well,
like, I mean, it
yeah.
is not necessarily the final scene, but
Right.
it's pretty much the prelude to it.
The climax.
Yeah, and I mean
Yeah.
this is the main scene that I point to when I say this movie's obviously not made for me.
Right,
It's made
right.
for a younger audience, right?
Yeah.
This is like that selling point. Was it interesting? Yes. I love the fact that they did it. Yeah, but on a rewatch, it's kind of like it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Eventually, you get too much comedy, where you've kind of hit your zenith. It's big as fuck, and I'm kind of done with it.
Mhm.
And that's the way I felt. Though it was fun, it was like I was tired of it. On the on the rewatch because of the way that the Marvel goes moving forward. They
Right.
lean so heavily into comedy, and most of the comedy in this movie is great, but some of it's really not. And that like specifically, the turning point for me was Ant-Man interrupting the daughter-father
Oh,
scene.
yeah.
As soon as that happened, I was like, I was kind of like done with the comedy aspect. You ruined everything that could have been something, and they just kept going heavy-handed into it. I do love the Michael Pena scene where he's describing things after the fact. The subatomic thing, they were alluding to it, so you know it was going to happen. So it is what it is, I guess. I mean, I just like I was kind of done with the movie at this point. Honestly,
All right.
rewatch.
Fair enough.
I mean, I knew what was gonna happen because I've seen it before. But like, even on my first watch, like, what's at stake is just him at this point, nothing else, right? Just Ant-Man going subatomic.
Yep.
So, and I didn't really give a fuck about Ant-Man. So, so yeah, I don't know. The ending was it fit for the movie, but it didn't blow me away.
You were comedy tapped out at that point. I get you.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
especially on a rewatch because
Heather, your thoughts on the ending before we get to the mid and post credit scene?
Jose, Michael Pena acting like a 5-year-old trying to tell a story that he made up in his own head. Fucking spot on and hilarious as fuck. But also seeing Thomas, the train, falling out of a house, the eyes spiraling as he's going to. Funny as hell.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But once we get to the conclusion of it, and it's just felt rushed.
Yeah.
And him going through to subatomic, it's like, oh shit, we forgot we have to do this now.
gotta set up the next movie.
Right.
And we gotta go with the super CGI ending.
Yeah, it's just like, did we really need the kaleidoscope effect?
I mean, maybe after a gummy or two, yeah. Yeah, I do feel that the quantum realm thing was shoehorned in a little bit. I mean, I get it. Obviously, bigger picture, future going forward. Yeah, that's going to be a main staple. I did.
I mean, this is one of the reasons that I didn't like the last Avengers movie
was
because they never really like they talk about it, but they don't like. I don't know. There's not enough for me to grasp. Like, I'm not the smartest man alive. You gotta fucking make it dumb and make it make sense.
Can you just
And
dumb it down?
They don't really do it ever, and they just use it as a tool.
You be more generic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to me like I'm 1 year old.
I mean, the climax did feel like it was a bit rushed. Heather makes a good point because it's just like, you build all this tension up and then just it seems very, very, very quick. But we do have two credit scenes. We do have two credit
He could have
scenes.
gone subatomic as soon as he saw him and ended the movie.
Yeah, but
He could have used his sperm gun on him.
Oh yeah.
And turned him into a little puddle of jizz. That's that. Which I still think is a fucking ridiculously good weapon. And why is this not used ever again? It's like, no, we'd rather use guns with bullets instead of like a taser that turns people to cum.
Listen,
like, Jesus.
Bring back the cum gun. Hashtag MCU.
I mean, you could have killed fucking Agent Coulson if you had the cum gun.
I mean, it's true.
You could have killed everybody if you had the cum gun. Why did he use the cum gun on Pym? Like, Jesus Christ, man. The cum gun is actually ridiculously powerful. And nobody gives it credit.
Fuck your gauntlets. Fuck your Infinity Stones. We have a cum gun.
I got the cum gun on Thanos. What's he going to do?
Oh, God, that's fantastic. All right. Let's get these credit scenes out of the way, and then we'll wrap this up. So, we got the first mid-credit scene, which, of course, Hank showing his daughter the new Wasp prototype suit and offering it to her. The time we finished it, it's about damn time. And the post-credit scene is actually a clip from the next movie where we see Captain America and Falcon have the Winter Soldier in their custody and are trying to figure out what to do next. Unable to tell Iron Man due to the Accords, Wilson says that they're on their own. He goes, maybe not. I think I know a guy. And scene.
He's not gonna show up.
Nope. Not like you could see him anyway. All right, so couple questions for you guys. We're also gonna throw this to the chat. I did throw to the chat, of course, at the beginning of every stream, like we always do. A poll: Ant-Man thumbs up or thumbs down? 71% saying thumbs up to Ant-Man. 29% saying thumbs down. Of course, we on the panel do a little bit more. We, of course, give a scale rating from 1 to 10. 1 being the drizzling shits, 10 being I'm going to be exploding like a cum gun. So I'm going to throw it over to, see, it's trending in the chat right now. I'm going to throw it over to Heather this time first. So Heather, scale of 1 to 10, overall thoughts on Ant-Man.
Overall thoughts, I mean, they tried to make this a main character, but kind of treated everything about this as a secondary character that we may never see again. There's some good storytelling, some good setting up of things to come.
Gun.
But it's just, it felt like that side of the road character that nobody really wants to ever see again. So
that sounds great. You're not really selling it at all.
No, I'm never going to. I mean, it's better than, like I said at the start of this, it's better than Age of Ultron.
Yep.
But it's still not up to par with fucking Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy is the right thing to compare it to because they have a very similar vibe.
Yes.
More comedic than anything else.
Right.
But Guardians has the intrigue of it being space and a bunch of different characters that aren't humans and things like that. This is a very this to me, if they had Disney Plus at the time, would have been a series on Disney Plus.
Yes.
And not a movie. I actually think they should have done a Black Widow movie before they did an Ant-Man movie. considering her importance to the franchise. I know people will be like, "Oh, well, Ant-Man's super important. He's how they go back in time and shit like that." It's like, yeah, but I mean, his actual involvement, screen time wise, is pretty low
Mm,
versus Black Widow.
right. But Heather, if you had to give a rating on Ant-Man, 1 to 10.
I am at about a 4.5, 5.
Okay, all right. Basement, you give this movie a 9. 9 cum guns out of 10.
There's definitely a lot of cum guns in this movie,
Yeah,
and the
there.
cum gun, like I said, is literally I don't understand why they never used it again. But to each their own, I guess. That it's like we want to make people small, not turn them into cum.
Science.
Well, we all start as cum. Anyways, that being said, the movie, yeah, I've shit on this movie while we're talking about it. I don't think this is a bad movie. Like in the beginning, I said this movie isn't a bad movie. It just does a lot of things. It's multiple movie genres. It does them worse than a lot of the genres that I've seen before. So it does nothing new for me. The humor was good until it was too much, and then it took me out of the movie, which really hurt the end of the movie for me. That being said, it's still not a bad movie. There's little faults to be found with the movie, so I can't rate it as low as Heather did. I don't find there to be gaping holes in this movie, so I give it like a 6 out of 10.
It's funny. I was kind of thinking that same number. Like I definitely, I definitely think that there is faults to this. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying this is the best movie. For me personally, rewatching it though, I actually enjoyed it more the second time around. But that's because there were aspects of this that I didn't like. I looked at it in a different way. Not that in the sense of like bigger scope or MCU or anything like that, but more trying to look at it as its own thing. There were parts of it I think they did pretty good at, but I'm definitely agreeing they put way too much comedy in there. However, I think that given the character of the superhero in Ant-Man, I think the casting choice was very, very good. I think that if they toned down certain comedic moments a little bit less, I would have given it a higher rating. But I think that's really the big like the big problem I have with the movie is the lack of like the punch, the lack of the high stakes. And you can chalk that up to the comedy. You could chalk that up to like you're trying to tell an origin story for a brand new MCU character, whatever. Either way, I still enjoyed it. Is it a perfect movie? Absolutely not. Is it better than Age of Ultron? It absolutely is. Is it better than Guardians? No. With that question being said, I'm gonna give this one a 6. I think that's it's definitely like we've seen worse MCU movies, but goddamn, we've definitely seen better, obviously. So that being said, we are now at the phase 2 finale. We are done with MCU phase 2. We're moving on to the behemoth that is MCU phase 3. So with that being said, the last question I want to ask Heather, the chat, and Basement is, in no particular order, not asking you guys to arrange them in any order, but out of the 6 that we've seen from the MCU second phase,
Well, I'll arrange them in order.
which one was the best?
Oh, which movies did we watch again?
Okay, so I think so. I'm gonna list all 6, and I'm gonna say I think I know which one's gonna be the bottom of the barrel. Iron Man 3. I'm trying to remember the order now. Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I'm missing one. Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers: Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. Those are the 6 from MCU Phase 2. You want to rank them?
This is the worst phase.
What?
This is the worst phase in Marvel movies.
Yes, it is.
A lot of people consider it to
maybe
be.
up until like what's happening now.
Well, there's 2 really good strong. Well, there's 2 to 3 really strong ones in here, though. I think.
All right, I'm gonna take a second here and arrange myself.
Can I just say this? I think we're all on the same page that Iron Man's 3 is the worst.
I don't know.
Yes.
My favorite.
Flip it. All right, so I think for me, Iron Man 3 is the worst. I think Avengers Age of Ultron is probably going to be number 5 then. So Iron Man 3 is number 6, Avengers Age of Ultron's number 5. Oh god.
Yeah, Ant-Man right after that.
Ant-Man would be after that. The top 3 are going to be the top 3 are going to be tricky
I'm going to
for
say
me.
Thor: The Dark World as third, Guardians as second, and Winter Soldier as first.
Yeah,
That's where I land.
yeah. No, I think
But that's just me.
no, I'm right there with you because to me, Winter Soldier is the best one. I know everyone to each their own, but like to me, But I mean,
I can't put Guardians number 1 just because of the fact that it doesn't hold the same weight.
Guardians and to me, honest to God, Guardians and Thor could be interchanged for 2 and 3.
Yeah,
Honest to
yeah.
God, they could
I agree with that
I
100%.
could easily switch either one of those.
I actually, what did I put? I think I might actually put
You put
Guardians. Yeah, I put Guardians second.
Yeah.
That's where it belongs
It's
for me.
really tough.
That's where it belongs.
And honestly, I'd even say there's arguments to be made you could switch Winter Soldier around a little bit depending on what you liked out of those 3 movies.
I don't think I would.
I
Winter Soldier
personally
for me holds the most weight out of all these movies.
Yeah.
It has to be number 1.
I think it was the best one, but I could easily see arguments made of those 3 being interchanged.
Yeah, Alpha says number 1 is Guardians of the Galaxy. If he had to guess, so that's cool. I mean, I'd be okay. Like, even in the end, it's all subjective. The only reason I put number 1 is because it has the most weight as a film and it has the most weight moving forward.
Right. So Cody said Thor: Dark World, Captain America: Winter Soldier, Guardians, Ant-Man, Iron Man 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and I'm assuming Avengers: Age of Ultron's probably at the bottom of the barrel. Heather, I mean, what do you think of that? What do you think? You said Iron Man 3.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines as you for the 4.
Yeah.
I would go with Guardians as number 1 because that gives us the most introspect into the larger picture story with the Infinity Stones and Thanos wanting to go after them for himself.
Right.
So I think with that has it's not more weight to the storyline, but actually more depth.
More world building.
This is why I couldn't do what Frank does and put Guardians of the Galaxy after Ant-Man. I know Ant-Man has its like purpose in the storyline, but Guardians of the Galaxy does what you're saying, Heather, and it establishes depth to what we're about to see instead of like the cheap Uno reverse card that Ant-Man
Yeah,
shows.
so Frank said in the chat, and this is a very interesting order: Winter Soldier, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers: Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3, and Thor.
I don't think you really like the Thor movies too much.
Yeah, I do. I don't want to speak on behalf of Frank. I could be wrong, but I believe he wasn't a huge fan of the Thor movies. But listen, to each their own. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of this roundtable, is that we love to discuss the the love and or hate or toleration of the Marvel movies. But yeah, MCU Phase 2 was definitely an interesting one to say the least, as we're setting ourselves up for. You ready for this, folks? So MCU Phase 1 was 6 movies, which we tackled. MCU Phase 2 was 6 movies, which we've tackled here on the roundtable. Prepare yourself for MCU Phase 3, which is 11 movies.
No, I think I know it's 11 movies, but I think most of them are pretty good.
There's a very good amount of this one. We'll talk about that on the next week's episode. But before we wrap up, any last minute comments, Basement, Heather, about Ant-Man, MCU Phase 2, or anything else before we wrap on up?
No.
Heather's done.
Ant-Man better standalone than it was
Connected.
part of. Yeah, I mean, I also feel okay. So we had Guardians, then we had Ultron, then we had this, right?
Yes, we had Guardians, Ultron, then this. Yep.
This is too similar to Guardians, but worse. and and that, I don't know. It's just like Guardians I enjoyed. Watched Ultron, I was like dying, and then I watched this. I'm like, this is like, I don't know. It's like any movie that Paul Rudd's been in that's been like a romantic comedy. It's like you watch it and it's like, it
Right.
exists, I guess.
Right.
I don't know, what Paul Rudd movie do you love? I don't love any of them.
All of them. I love all of them.
Which ones are they? Anchorman, but he's like a side character, and
Yeah.
you're worse than them.
Right.
This is 40.
Yep.
Didn't watch that.
That's about all the Paul Rudd movies.
The one where he's there. I don't know.
Right. Exact. Ghostbusters.
I didn't see that one yet.
He's barely in it. He's him. He's him. No, I'm just teasing. But that being said, I want to thank Heather and Basement for joining us once again on the Marvel Roundtable, and all you wonderful cool cat and kittens out in there in the chat. Make sure again to subscribe to the Horny Goat YouTube channel, youtube.com/Horny Goat, and check us out on your favorite podcasting platform.
What's
through
next? What did you say was next?
I'm getting there.
I'm always
It's my final thing. It's my final send off. It's the hype for the next one.
My final send off is interrupting you and
Bastard.
asking something that you're going to get to.
Yes, always is.
Sorry.
It's okay. Listen to us on your favorite podcasting platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Anchor. So check us out on your favorite podcasting apps. We can also listen to the latest episode of No Bucks Given. And make sure you guys come back here tomorrow for some HG Wrestling. Horny Goat Wrestling will be back on tomorrow night. That being said, thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate all the love and support. And we'll see you guys next week as we enter into Marvel's Phase 3 of the MCU. And things are not off to a good start. Maybe not necessarily story-wise, but definitely within the confines of the Avengers. As we see what a movie that a lot of people consider to be essentially Avengers 2.5 as we kick off MCU's Phase 3 with Captain America Civil War.